Hi, John. How you doing?
Hey Ken, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay. I know we're both under house arrest, I guess, along with the rest of the world. But thanks for joining us today to talk about EEG a little bit. Can you give a little bit of an overview, a primer of what
Yeah,
EEG is all about?
yeah, absolutely. EEG was founded in the early 1980s, I believe 1983 or so, as an electrical engineering group. And it was during that time that we actually developed or worked with, in conjunction with PBS, to develop that initial 608 standard for North American closed captions and inserting that data into video. So that's really been our primary focus. We've been a closed caption centric company for almost 40 years now, and really our focus within closed captioning is the live aspect. Not to take away from the importance of post-production captioning and captioning, pre-recorded content, and that's something we're also active in. But what we focus on is really the live post captioning, where it becomes a little bit more the secret sauce, so to speak, in terms of actually taking that audio, sending it to a caption writer, and then putting it on the video in real time. So, when you're watching something like, March Madness or the Super Bowl or something like that, either, not only if you might be hearing impaired, but also if you're just in a bar or, in a group, in a room with a large group of individuals, you can see what's going on with the commentary.
Right.
Hopefully we return to those circumstances where we're in all of those situations. But
Right. So I know that there's obviously different approaches to captioning, right? There's the more automated systems. You could obviously hire somebody, as course stenographers,
sure.
just to use that. So what do you see as sort of the pros and cons of, say, the automated versus having a real person involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I think that live captioners or human captioners, what we'll call live captioners for the purpose of our discussion today, I think that those are still the gold standard in most cases for live closed captioning. And for people who don't know, those are of course like cart specialists, court reporters who use a stenography machine to generate the caption data. And that's the gold standard. At the same time, though, with human beings, you need to schedule them. If you were a captioner, I'd need to call you and let you know that I needed something captioned tomorrow at 3 p.m. Whereas with a computer or an ASR system, automated speech recognition, ASR, that's not necessary. You don't need to give that computer really notice. You don't need to give that system notice. You can just push go and you'll have captions. Also, it's definitely, there's some economic issues there, whereas it can be a lot more cost effective to provide ASR captions. In terms of the accuracy, that's like, obviously the number one question people ask when it comes to ASR services is how accurate will it be?
Right.
And, that's an interesting question. It's a loaded question that, what snapshot are you looking at? What do you consider to be accurate? But generally the answer is, typically around 90 to 95% versus, upwards of 98% for a human captioner.
Right.
You can get that a lot better with an ASR system, such as EEG's Lexi, by configuring things like custom topic models, teaching the system names of places, player names in the case of sports are huge. You may have you're going to have a lot different like types of names and really a vocabulary for something like football, and by football I mean European football, soccer, than you would like say the NHL. You're going to have different names. You're going to have just a different vocabulary that's being used. So training it in that regard is particularly important. One of the big advantages that I see with speech recognition captioning is the ability to caption content that you might not otherwise afford to caption.
Right.
So it's not really, saving event producers, on their bottom line so much as enabling accessibility, for solutions that, or excuse me, for events that might not be captioned. Like there's a lot of streaming only content for the Olympics, for example, that might, you aren't necessarily, for riflery or something like that in the Summer Olympics. That isn't necessarily going to be a prime time production, but it will be streamed. So, when you have so many events in something like the Olympics, you probably aren't, going to have the budget necessarily to caption all of those. But with ASR, you might. And this goes about, I'm using that as an example just because that's such a major production with so many events. But, it could go, with like, for example, I'm here in Chapel Hill temporarily. Like if like UNC women's fencing were to put on a live stream event, that's probably not something that, for the viewership for a live stream, you're going to retain a captioner for whatever their rate may be, let's say around $100 an hour. But with a ASR system, you can make that content accessible. Right. So, I think that's really one of the big advantages of ASR. Whereas with humans, you definitely get like a really proven and accurate solution. At the same time, ASR is making advances every day. So I think, right now and for the foreseeable future, both of these things can coexist within the captioning ecosystem. And there's appropriate use cases for both. And, I look at them as supplemental technologies.
Gotcha.
To provide a complete captioning workflow.
Sure. So Falcon, obviously we're in a cloud-based world right now, and people are, not often able to get to the facility to use it. So can you talk about Falcon a little bit and what the philosophy is behind that system?
Yeah, Falcon's a really, really cool product. So traditionally with closed captioning, up until recently, was done purely in SDI. Like even for streaming before Falcon, captioning was done in SDI. You would film your video in SDI, it would go through a streaming media encoder and then out to the web, out to your CDN, to your web player. The captions would be embedded in the SDI, and you would need to make sure that whatever streaming video encoder you are using is able to preserve that caption data before sending it out to the web.
Right.
So you'd place a hardware closed caption encoder upstream from your streaming video encoder to extract the audio, send it to the captioners, and then embed the captions. With Falcon, it eliminates the need for hardware because the captions are actually inserted downstream from your streaming video encoder that does like an RTMPS conversion. So you take that RTMP stream, it gets sent to Falcon, which is hosted on the web by EEG. Falcon acts as the encoder, stripping the audio, sending it to a live captioner, returning it to Falcon, and then embedding that in the RTMP stream, and then you point the RTMP stream to your CDN.
I see.
And to your web player. So it's just a midway point. It's almost easy to think of it as like a T, whereas you have at one end of the top of the T, your streaming video encoder. The midpoint of the T is Falcon, and then the cross becomes a two-way connection to the captioner or to your caption generation system. And then at the other end of the top of the T is, of course, your CDN. And it's really convenient because a lot of times people produce events on the fly and things like that. And, EEG offers closed caption encoder rentals, but you have to actually ship someone hardware. You have to certify that when it comes back. This is better for all parties because you can just activate a license on demand. You can do it on 24 hours notice. There's no rushing to ship anything, worrying about if something gets held up in the mail. Right. Also all the advantages you can think of with a cloud-based workflow are present with Falcon. So it's a really user-friendly solution. It's also extremely economical. You can caption, unlimited monthly now for I think $399 with a Falcon closed caption encoder. So it's great for the event-based industry, all sorts of events, not only like sports, but just across the board. So it's a really great solution for streaming.
So last question. As far as, obviously latency is the thing that always drives people crazy with, especially with sports, right? You're kind of watching it.
Sure.
What's being done to kind of close that gap? Is this approach better than a hardware-based one? Because does it help with latency, or what are some tips on how to close that gap?
Yeah, in terms of the caption latency, or in terms of streaming latency?
Caption latency. You could delay the stream and then have the caption be all nicely matched up.
Sure. There's really no difference in terms of the encoding in the latency as to whether or not you're encoding with an SDI encoder for a live stream or whether or not you're encoding for Falcon. The actual encoding latency is measured in milliseconds, which is amazing. When I first started doing this like 4 years ago, that was amazing. The whole process of live closed captioning was really pretty amazing to me. And I come from a technology background, but it wasn't something I'd really given an incredible amount of thought to, like a lot of millennials. I guess I'll take that label. I was born in '84 to date myself, but like a lot of millennials, I use closed captioning, and I've always been a fan, like particularly when watching, games. I'm a big UNC basketball fan. So like going to UNC games in Brooklyn, in New York, like at bars with the Carolina Club. And we'd always have the captions on, because if you don't have sound on, you know, you would want to see what's going on. The play action. But the real caption latency, bringing this back around, comes down to what's known as transcription latency. And that's the time it takes a human being to mentally process what's being said, type that out using a stenography machine, and not the actual encoding and audio extraction, which happens like relatively quickly. And you know, and that's one of the advantages of like an ASR system like Lexi, whereas you see like a little bit lower latency, probably 1 to 1.5 seconds. Like typically the transcription latency with a live captioner is 4 to 6 seconds, depending on, you know, the experience, the skill level, you know, just how fast they type. And whereas with an ASR system like Lexi, it's more like 3 to 5. So it's, you know, a little bit lower latency, but there is that, but you're going to have that transcription latency regardless. One of the features we offer to offset that is you can do, through our hardware encoders, there's a feature called CC match, and actually delay the video to offset the caption latency. But typically that's, you know, that's a little bit dicey of a path to go down, because naturally with any live production, there's, you know, there's a resistance for any sort of delay in the video. I remember, you know, a few years back, we were down in Mexico City talking with some customers down there of the networks, you know, in Mexico. And, you know, a big thing there is, of course, football or soccer, as we say in the US. And, you know, it was like just the idea of it being half a second behind, like one of their, like, you know, someone else carrying that same game, that, you know, of course, that's, you know, that can't be. So there's naturally kind of a resistance to any sort of video delay. So, you know, in terms of caption latency, it's one of those things that you almost need to, you know, be prepared to address one way or the other in terms of it is going to be there without a video delay. There's no way to get around like at least a couple of seconds of latency in terms of the captions, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Great.
At this time, at least.
Yeah, that's great. No, thanks so much for your time. Stay safe down in Chapel Hill. Enjoy, you know, enjoy down there. The weather's going to be a little bit nicer down there than it is here in New York. I guess spring's going to arrive a little bit earlier. Maybe be there already. So, but thanks for your time.
I hope to make it back home here in the next month or so. I'm watching the news like everybody else and kind of keeping my hopes and positive thoughts going out to everybody, especially the first responders. And that's something else positive, is that, you know, through captioning, we've been able to help a lot of public access here at EEG. So it's nice to kind of make a little bit of a difference here in our own way at EEG.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks so much, and see you soon, hopefully in person.
All right. Hey, thank you, Ken. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.